Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and video show which brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, and experience from hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Frits Bussemaker, and today I'm pleased to have with us Boudine Berkleef. Boudine, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Very happy to
Boudine,
be here.
you are already giving away the secret what we're going to talk about, the puppy specialist, definitely
Yeah,
the topic today. But for
yeah.
the audience, to introduce you just a little bit, you are also a former police officer, a detective, former case
Yes,
manager for college who had PTSD. So
exactly. Yeah.
um, I already have a number of questions, but the most basic question I have when you call yourself the puppy specialist, how many dogs do you have?
How many dogs do I have? I have two dogs. I have
Two
two
dogs.
Rhodesian Ridgebacks. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Did you grow up with dogs?
I did. Yeah. I when I was young, I grew up with two Jack Russells, and they were named Fleck and Flo,
Yeah.
and they were the reason actually that my interest in dogs and dog training were sparked.
Mhm.
And then when I was 25, I got my dog. No, not 25. I was a little bit older, but then I got my dog Neo, and I've been hooked ever since.
Great. But you didn't start off with what you're doing right now, which we'll cover later, because
Mhm.
you are trained as a police officer.
Yeah, yeah, I was. I started working at the National Police of the Netherlands when I was 21, I think. And when I graduated college, I didn't know what to do. I wanted to do something meaningful with my life. I wanted to help people. I wanted to contribute to society. And also I wanted variety. I didn't want a 9 to 5 job. And so I was like, I can find all that within the police force. And so I started out by being a law enforcer, just working on the streets and driving the 112 calls, which is the alarm number in the Netherlands. And then I started to being a detective, and I was a detective for 9 years. And later I became a case manager for colleagues with PTSD. And I had a lot of fun within the police force. I learned a lot and it helped me grow as a person as well. But then eventually I realized that my true passion was with dogs and dog training and dog behavior. And so I founded the Puppy Specialist.
Okay. And by the way, was that you had a lot of fun working with the police? You learned a lot. I definitely want to come back because I'll tell you later. What
Mhm.
was the most significant lessons you've learned while at the police force?
To work under pressure, I think, and also to look at the whole picture, to not jump to conclusions just because you have like certain pieces of information. I learned to observe, to analyze, to look at all the pieces of the puzzle, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And to, did you work with dogs as a professional at the police? Because
No, no, I didn't. No.
canines?
No, there's a question that I get a lot because people link working with dogs, police, but the thing is the police has certain departments of working with the dogs, and the type of dog that they use within the police force are usually of a herding breed, so the Dutch Shepherds or the Belgian Shepherds. And I must admit, those dogs are not like necessarily my cup of tea. So and I'm of the opinion that when you work with a dog, it has to fit. You have to match with each other because otherwise, you don't gel right with each other. And I love hunting dogs. I do not. Well, I like the herding breeds, but I do love hunting dogs. And so I decided to have my work with the dog separate from the work with the police because I started both. When I was still working at the police, I also started working with dogs and founding the puppy specialist. But it was a conscious choice to keep those worlds apart from each other. Yeah.
Okay. Um, so I'm making an assumption now that okay, you were still at the police, so a little bit of job security, but at a certain and already started your own company. So at a
Mhm.
certain point, you said, okay, I cannot combine them anymore. I need
Yeah,
to stop.
exactly. Yeah.
So how long did you take to make that decision? How did that look like?
Um, I think well I must go first I have to start at the beginning because the title of dog trainer or canine instructor or canine behavior therapist those are not legally protected titles in the Netherlands. Like anyone can call themselves a dog trainer or like a professional within the work field. And so I wanted to be outstanding. So I wanted to have like a good education and to actually know what I was doing, knowing what I was talking about. So first, I started out studying for being a canine instructor, and then I started more to be a canine therapist. And then when I felt I had all the knowledge and I put my hours in working with the dogs, then I realized, okay, th now is the time to take the jump or make the jump and start this company. And I think um, I did it within 5 years. Yeah. Yeah. I was 5 years of studying and working hard, like beside my job at the police force. And then I was like, okay, now's the time. I'm going to do this.
And did you do that all on your own, or did you have people around you which coached you, which gave you advice?
Well, I had some people that gave me advice because like I know dogs, I know dog training, I know dog
Yeah.
behavior, but I didn't know anything about running a business or entrepreneurship or anything like that. So yes, I had to do it all on my own because when you start working at the police force, you have this what they call a blue family.
Mm.
So you have this social identity of being a law enforcer, and you have, of course, the fixed salary, and you have this big structured organization around you. And when you start your own company, you don't have any of that. You are alone. And so I was like, okay, I need some help. And luckily, I have my dad, who is an entrepreneur, and I have my partner, Marloes, and they help me a lot, and my sister as well. So I got some help to get like on my feet and all the yeah, what do you call it? The certain information and steps that you have to take when running a business. But I must say, I dove right in. I just went in head first, and I was like, okay, let's see how this is done.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anybody, by the way, which wanted to stop you doing this?
No, no, they were all like go for it because they saw like the my friends and my family, they saw how happy I was working with these dogs and
Okay.
teaching other owners. So yeah, they were happy for me.
Now let's dig further into being a puppy specialist.
Hmm.
Now, I watched a couple of sessions of Caesar Millen.
Oh yes.
Yes, yeah, and for the audience, a well-known TV personality who is a dog trainer. And I got
Hmm.
the impression half the time you're training the owner and not the dog. Would you
That
agree
is
with
true.
that? Yeah. Would you agree with that philosophy? Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with absolutely agree with that philosophy because most of the times it is the owner and it's very much less the dog.
So,
Um,
what are you training? What are you training for?
what am I training for? Well, at first, like I called my company the puppy specialist because I wanted to work with puppies and I specialized in puppy development and behavior. And then um, along the way, I encountered some problems with my own dog, and that was separation anxiety. And um, when I got my dog, we had it was 2020 and we had the Corona pandemic. And so nobody knew what Corona was, and everyone was very, I don't know, afraid to get sick. And so socialization was, well, not possible, and we had no visitors. And I was single at the time, so my dog knew only me. And so she develops like severe separation anxiety, which means that the dog cannot cope with being alone or being left alone. And working through this problem, I realized that it has such a huge impact on your life because basically you cannot leave the house anymore.
Yeah.
Because when you leave the house and the dog is alone, it will whine, it will howl, it will bark endlessly until you get back. And they also might defecate in the house. They will destroy your home. So basically, you're a prisoner of your own house, and at the same time, you see your dog that is in a state of panic, and that is heartbreaking to see. And then I realized I am not the only one experiencing this problem. because around the world, so not only the Netherlands, but around the world, there are thousands and or millions of owners who experience this problem with their dogs. And so I realized this niche, I have personal experience with this, but also I want to help people and dogs who go through this problem because when you work through this problem and you see progress and you get your life back, like the quality of life is so much improved through training for the dog, but also for yourself because you might not realize, but it's in the basic things of going grocery shopping or taking a shower or going around the block or going to the gym. You cannot do those things when your dog has separation anxiety. And so when we start training, I give those owners their lives back because then they can do those things again, and the dog is okay with being left alone. And then I was like, okay, so my company is called the Puppy Specialist, but I also want to focus on the separation anxiety. And then what I also encountered is reactivity. So when dogs react to other dogs or people or other items. And it's also a big problem in this world. And this is also something that I encountered myself. And I was like, okay, when I am a canine therapist, I want to help people with problems that are like big, that really matter when I help them. And these two problems are it for me. And then because of the breed that Neo is, and Rhodesian Ridgeback, they are hunting dogs. They like to chase. They are bred to chase lions. And so I was like, okay, this is going to round it out. I want to specialize in the predatory drift of these dogs. And so I have this company specializing in puppies, but with the behavioral therapy, I have the separation anxiety, the reactivity, and the predatory drift in dogs. Yes.
You, I mean, what you're sharing with me makes me realize how important it maybe is to, as a potential dog owner, ask yourself the question, should I own a dog in the first place?
Well, no, not should I own a dog, but what kind of dog matches with me or my lifestyle. So you have to look at the breed of the dog that you want. And people might say, well, adopt, don't shop. Yes, yes, you can, because you can grant a dog a better life. But when you know the breed of your dog, you know the genetic dispositions of the dog and the things that the dog is bred to do. So when I have this hunting dog, the Rhodesian Ridgeback, let's take that for example, and I know that hunting wildlife is in its DNA because we bred for it hundreds and hundreds of years, like selective breeding, then I mustn't expect then when I go to a forest and I have my dog off leash and it spots a rabbit or a deer, that it will not chase the deer because that is what the dog is bred to do. And so when I just want to enjoy a quiet walk in nature and have my dog off leash that listens 100%, I cannot expect that from a hunting dog,
Okay.
right?
You already mentioned hunting dogs, herding dogs. What other categories of dogs do you have?
Well, in the Netherlands, we have a list of 10 categories, so to
Okay.
say. So we have also companion dogs. We have the retrieving group. We have the incontinental, well, other hunting breeds. We have a lot. We have a lot of choices. So people can I think they can always find a companion that matches with your lifestyle and who you are. Yeah.
Would you then, when I see this happening, I started during Corona, I see that happening also growing up with dogs myself,
Hmm.
that the children, very important, oh, I think that's a cute puppy. And completely not asking the questions what you're discussing.
Hmm.
Okay,
Hmm.
will this dog fit into the family? Is this the dog for me? So
Exactly.
can you turn it around? So, what type of personality best fits a hunting dog or a herding dog or a companion dog? Can you?
But I don't necessarily think it's about personality. I think well, or it could be, but I think you have to take a look at the life that you live. So are you an active person? Do you like to go for walks like for longer periods of time? And also, are you willing to commit training. And I mean that in a way, like dogs are the most happiest when their mental and physical needs are met. But if you like to stay on the couch all day, then sure you can get a dog, but you get a breed that likes to be like less active, right? And some people they want to show their dogs. Some people want to play sports activities with their dogs. So you can, I think you must look at what kind of life you want to live and then match the dog to fit that lifestyle.
To what extent do we unconsciously already make that choice in your perception? As I mean, you hear some every now and then people say, okay, people start to look at like their pets, but that's actually almost deliberate because
Yeah.
you choose
Um,
a pet which suits your lifestyle.
It could be because some people are very conscious of getting a dog, and they reach out to a breeder, and they are for years on a wait list to get a puppy from a certain combination. But then you have people that they see a picture of a dog and they're like in love, and they're like, "Oh, this is gonna be my puppy," and they go to the breeder, or they go to the breeder and they say, "Yeah, we just have a look. We're going there and see the puppy, but we'll just have a look." And then they see the actual puppy and they fall in love because puppies are super cute and fluffy and nice. Um, so um, I think sometimes, yes, it can cause problems, but most of the times the dog will also adapt. The
Mm.
dog will adapt to the life that it's living. And then you get dogs that look like their owners or the other way around, I think.
Okay. Now, situation. Somebody assumes they have a problem. They found you through word of mouth, through the internet. Doesn't matter.
Mhm.
What's the first? So, what happens? Do you expect people to walk into your office with the dog? What's the first thing you do? How does it look like?
Well, the first thing that I do, like most people reach out to me via email or an WhatsApp text.
Yeah.
And so what I do, I schedule an intake phone call. And then I can gather some information. I can hear the owner explaining to me what is happening. And then what I do, because I do not have a training facility myself yet. So what I do, I uh, uh, go to the house of the owner and then meet them in their, well, natural environment is what I do. But that is for the most like common problems that they experience. But because I also do the separation anxiety training, this is something that can be perfectly done online. So for other cases than separation anxiety, I go to the home, I observe the dog in their own natural environment, and I also observe what the owner does. And then I can give them hands-on advice on what to do and what not to do. And then I write a therapy plan for them that mentions all those things and they can follow all the steps. But with separation anxiety, it's about gradually exposing the dog to like a minimal amount of time to being alone. And so what I do when owners start their training with me, I only work with a structured training sessions of several weeks. So owners can buy a program of that consists of 4 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, or more. It depends on the severity of the problem. And what I ask them to do, I asked them to film their training sessions, and which means that they practice with leaving the dog alone for a certain amount of time that I set, and then they have to video their training session. They have to well mail it to me, and then I can analyze the training session. I can observe, and I can also notice like what is the dog doing? What is the dog showing on like very subtle communication signals and all that. And then I can alter or adjust the training plan, or I can tell them to progress in the training. So the beauty of separation anxiety training is it can be done from my own house, but I can reach the whole world. So I can help a lot of people with that. So for a lot of common like other problems, I just work in the Netherlands. And for separation anxiety, I have clients from all over the world. Yeah.
Interesting. Uh,
Yeah.
do people um, recognize the issue they're facing?
Yeah. So how do you mean that?
Sorry, a little cryptic question. Sorry about that. When you get a call, to what extent do you get a very specific request, or is it more a general call for help?
Um, Sometimes both,
Yeah.
because sometimes people, yeah, and now I realize what you said. Sometimes people do not don't know what kind of problem their dog is having, but sometimes their dog has several problems all in one. And also some of the behavioral problems that dogs can have, they can how do you say that? Um, ja, ze overlappen
Yeah.
elkaar.
The overlap.
Yeah, yeah, so they overlay each other. So, um, let's say separation anxiety. The dog, like most common behaviors, is that the dog will bark or whine or maybe destroys things in the home. But when the dog is bored, it can also destroy your home. Or when the dog is seeing passersby from throughout the window, it can also bark through the people that he sees passing. So he's being territorial and he's not suffering separation anxiety. So this is why I do this intake call to gather some of the information and also the living situation of the people that call me. And also, if known, I'd like to know the breed because some breeds are prone to being more territorial or having separation anxiety or other problems. And so I can make like a very hesitant um, observation of what is going on
Actually,
already.
want to come back to when I asked you what were the lessons learned when you were a police officer. You mentioned a couple. Um,
Mhm.
have you been able to make use of that experience in your current position?
Yes, yes, it has been very helpful because dogs, they do not communicate the way that we people do. They communicate with very, very subtle signs. And you have to be very observant because otherwise you will miss them or you will not be able to interpret them. And what people like, the dog ha can have communicated something with 10 to 15 signals and then for example, it will bite because it's not being heard. And then we people, we tell ourselves, oh, he bit out of nowhere. He was aggressive, like out of nowhere. Like I did not see it coming. And the dog was already showing all these signs. So being very observant is very helpful. Being very good at reading do body language as well with people and with dogs is very useful. But also the asking the right questions to get all the information that I need to make this therapy plan and also listen to what the owner is telling me and also listen to what the dog is telling me. So I think this is very helpful in my current job. And I also like that when I first started out with working at the police, I said I wanted to help people and I wanted to contribute to society and all that. And it's funny because I do the same thing now. I still help people and I also help dogs now, but it's 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 both the same line of work, but then a different field of work. But then
I get you.
I
Yeah.
use the
Yeah.
same skills. So that's very nice.
Now, I just mentioned you, at least the only dog, you could say, trainer I knew of outside the local, you could say, people like Martin Gauss. And
Mhm.
would know who he was. But is Caesar Millen, are these people for you role models, or do you see?
Some can be. Yeah, I have a couple of role models, and the beauty of dog training or dog trainers in general or behavioral therapists, I think that we can all learn from each other because when we see the dog world, let's say we have two kind of camps. So we have the camp that is of the opinion that we need punishment to train a dog, and we have the opinion that we need positive reinforcement to train a dog, which is rewarding the dog when it does something good or well. And I think I don't like to punish a dog or anything like that. I am of the camp of positive reinforcement because I think when we have patience and we are clearly communicating to the dog that what we mean and what we want, then we can reach um, understanding from the dog. And I think when I look at the people that are very well known, I think when I analyze the way that they're training, I'd like to see how they are training, what methods they use, what kind of knowledge they have, and I pick what I think is valuable to me and what I can use to better my work or my methods. So
Makes
yes,
sense.
I have a couple of role models. Yeah.
Okay. Um, what are your top concerns in dog ownership today?
I think that sometimes people are very old-fashioned in how to treat a dog or how a dog thinks. Um, for example, when we talked about the punishment just now, um, I think people don't understand what kind of consequence it has on your relationship with your dog if you only use punishment. Because what you do when you punish the dog for something that you don't want, you create fear and pain. And so the dog doesn't do something or does do something because it is scared of you. And I don't think that when you have a relationship with each other of owner and pet and one of them is afraid of the other, it's not a good relationship. So I like to teach people an alternative. I don't like to shame people or telling them flat out they're wrong and all that because changing a mindset of someone is hard. To adopt new behavior for yourself is hard. Let's say I want to lose weight and I want to go to the gym and change my diet. I need a couple of months to get used to the new lifestyle routine, and I think it's the same with people that want to learn a new way of training their dog. Um, and I think when I look at the most, well, I would say like common pitfalls with dog training. I think people go too fast. They expect like a lot of things from the dog, and the dog has no clue of what the owner means. And then people always want a quick fix. They want to have quick results for everything, and that's not the way it works because you have to be clearly communicating, and you have to have patience when you want to teach an animal something to do something or to not do something.
That's
So I think that's that.
sorry.
Yeah.
No, thank you for that. That's a nice segue to another question I had for you. Were you patient enough developing your own company? And was it smooth sailing from the beginning, or was there bumpy roads, and what were those bumps?
Was I patient with founding this company? No, I was not. I wanted to start as quickly as possible because I loved what I was doing and I wanted to build this brand and to start off on my own and commit to this journey actually. Um, but then when I started, I had imposter syndrome. I was like, am I good enough? Will I attract enough clients or how am I going to do this? And then my beautiful girlfriend, she built me a website, and this through this website, people found me, and they like what I said on my website and the services that I offered. It resonated with people, and so I got a lot of clients. And then word of mouth started happening, and then I got more clients, and so I didn't have like a bumpy or bumps in the road with not attracting enough clients to keep this company afloat, but I did encounter bumps with how to run a company because I'm super, like, if I must say that, can say that, like, I'm good with dogs. I'm good at training. I know dogs and dog behavior, and I can help. I can actually help people. I can give people their lives back if they struggle with a problem because that is what living with a dog that has behavioral problems is like you have a problem and a huge impact on your life. So there's that. But I am not as good at in planning or having my agenda in how do you say that? Like plan my appointments in a good way.
So how do you do it?
Um, how do I do?
Now, how do you deal
Uh,
with the fact that you realize
how
I'm
do I
good at
deal
this?
with that? Well, I have a lot of comments from my partner. And she's like, should you do this? Should you plan this appointment at this time? So basically, I have people around me that tell me sometimes what I plan is not a good idea. So I can count on them to make me feel accountable. Um, and how do I deal? I try to be better though. There are a lot of courses that I like to follow because it's not only about dog training, it's also about growing as a person, you know.
Yeah,
So that is
that's
what I
what
want.
yeah.
Yeah, that's
I'm
what I
hearing
like.
almost like a front office, back office situation that you're so passionate about the profession, the dog training, and that's why I wanted to stand still with what I've noticed. Okay, well, I actually would want to avoid or not discuss that, and that's your weak spot. So
Yeah, it is. Yeah, no, I'm honest about that. But then I want to grow as a person because like you cannot run a business on doing the training alone. You have
yeah,
to have the whole picture. And so this is why I'm following these courses to understand what my weaknesses are and how to make them better. But also like handling your finances and all that. It's a lot. So I
so
try to balance them in a healthy way.
now that's already great advice to anybody else who is considering to start their own profession. Um, Last question, Bodine, because fascinating story to talk about dogs, but unfortunately, we have one last question for you, and that is, um, in your experience, what advice would you give young people who are considering to start on their own? What advice would you give them?
I would advise them to surround yourself with people that have knowledge about the niche that you want to start your company in. I want to advise them to, well, what I said, look at the big picture. It's not only about the thing that you're passionate about, but it's the whole thing. And it could be that parts of starting your own business you do not like. You do not like to handle the back end, the administrative side of things, or well, the how to run your company, you
Yeah.
know? So, because that is what I experienced. And I think it's important because if you lack in certain areas, your company, it will not flourish. It will be a grind. It will become a grind, and then you will lose the passion that you have for it, and that would be a shame. But also lean on the people that you have. If there are people in your surroundings that want to give you advice or can help you with sharing their knowledge, please do it together because, like I said, you can always learn from one another, and it will make you a better person for it. Yeah.
Okay. One final extra question.
Okay.
Is there going to be live after the puppy specialist, or is this where you see yourself ending your career as well?
I don't know. No. I want to build this brand. And like I said, I don't have a training facility yet, but I want to. So my next big dream is that I own a training facility with the dog training, but also the behavior therapy. But also what I really love is to have in-house expertise. So I want like a good connection with a veterinarian or an osteopath or a physiotherapist. And my wish is that everything will be in the same facility. So we have these short lines of communicating with each other and helping these people with their dogs. So I think I'm going to work towards that.
Great. Okay. Hey, thanks for sharing your background and your ambition,
Hey,
both,
you're welcome.
and also the lessons learned, and hopefully people will be able to use that in their own quest for their own future. So
I
again,
hope so too.
thank you so much.
Well, thank you too.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.